On this giant rock, the Academy tokens in the hands of many teams were glowing. They were all looking at the rankings that had just appeared, and suddenly, shouts of surprise echoed through the air. Many people wore bitter smiles. This was the gap between them. They were still striving to break the 100 points barrier, but now, the team in first place already had over 2,000 points. It was terrifying. No one knew how these powerhouse teams had managed to achieve this. These maniacs, how did they do it? Mu Fengyang waved his Academy token in disbelief. He had originally thought their score was already high enough, but to his surprise, they couldn't even make it into the top 16. Luo Li frowned slightly and said, "These teams must have wiped out all the other teams in their landing zones, and they didn't take any second-hand detours." Mu Chen nodded slightly. According to the rules, when two teams fought, the losing team would give half of their score on the Academy token to the winner. These guys, like the ones earlier, had already swept through the weaker teams, so even if Mu Chen wiped them out now, they could only get half the points. Therefore, the scores these teams currently had were still higher than their starting points. In this case, the points in Mu Chen's hands would also be reduced since their sweep had gone through a detour. "If I had known, we should have done it ourselves and wiped out each team one by one," Zhao Qingshan said, stroking his chin. "But even if we did that, we'd probably barely make it into the top 16. The first-place team from 10,000 Phoenix Academy actually has over 2,500 points. How did they manage that?" Su Huang and the others nodded in agreement, feeling the same way. The score was just too absurd. "It's simple." Luo Li smiled slightly and said, "We should quickly take advantage of the fact that these teleportation landing points haven't dispersed yet, and wipe out a few more teams." Su Huang opened his mouth, speechless. In such a short amount of time, to sweep across several teleportation landing points with such a domineering attitude, what kind of strength would that require? After all, the teams participating in the Spiritual Academy tournament were all elites from each Spirit Academy, and each landing point would have some tricky teams. Some even included experts who had passed the physical body tribulation. Yet, this 10,000 Phoenix Academy team had swept through them without a care. Clearly, their strength was terrifying. When Qingxian, Mu Chen looked at the name at the top of the rankings on the Academy token, feeling a little surprised. This girl must be the one who won the Spiritual Road Championship. It was undeniable. She was indeed very powerful. Even Ji Xian couldn't surpass her. Impressive. I really want to meet this Spiritual Road champion. I wonder who she really is. Mu Chen smiled and shook his head. Due to being eliminated halfway through the Spiritual Road, he had never met this girl, who had ultimately won the spiritual crown among the kings. He was quite curious about the spirit crown holder. "Do you want to meet her?" "I've seen her once, and she's indeed very beautiful." Luo Li smiled charmingly. Mu Chen chuckled awkwardly. From the ambiguous gaze Luo Li cast his way, he could feel something strange. He immediately turned serious and said, "I don't believe it. No matter how beautiful she is, she can't be more beautiful than my little Luo Li, right?" Luo Li pouted slightly, clearly seeing through Mu Chen's tactics. However, the expression was incredibly cute. Saint Spirit Academy is truly impressive. They've actually got 4 teams in the top 16. Su Huang frowned as he looked at the Academy tokens. He noticed that in the top 16, all 4 teams from Saint Spirit Academy had made it. This time, Saint Spirit Academy had really sent out its elites. All 4 teams were incredibly strong. According to the rules, once 8 teams in the top 16 light their Academy tokens, the elimination will end. Now that Saint Spirit Academy holds 4 spots, if they join forces with other top 16 teams, they might be able to control the end time of the entire Spiritual Academy tournament, Zhao Qingshan said, his face serious. Although entering the top 16 would expose their own positions, it would allow them to control when the tournament ended, which was a powerful right. After all, no one knew when they would decide to light their tokens, ending the tournament. It's said that when an Academy token is lit, everyone will be notified. Here, aside from our own team, everyone else is an opponent, and no one will trust them. After all, if the 4 teams from Saint Spirit Academy enter the final battle, it would be bad news for all other Spirit Academies. What should we do now? We have to secure a spot in the top 16 to be safe. But now, I'm afraid the teams that gathered at the various teleportation landing points have already dispersed. It's going to be hard to pull off something like a large-scale ambush again. Su Huang, and the others mused. Mu Chun smiled slightly and said, "Trying to find scattered teams to steal points is too inefficient." Su Huang and the others looked at Mu Chun in confusion. Then they saw him raise the academy token in his hand and chuckle. "We have a very clear target here, and most of them are sitting ducks. Taking down one team would be worth more than robbing hundreds of others." Su Huang and the others were stunned. Was Mu Chun really planning to target these top 16 powerhouse teams? That was incredibly bold. These teams were no pushovers. "Don't you find this unbelievable?" Mu Chun smiled faintly. The teams that made it into the top 16, apart from a few truly strong ones, a lot of them just got lucky. I believe, maybe within a day, most of the current top 16 teams will be knocked out. These are the prime targets. The only question is, are you brave enough? Su Huang, Zhao Qingshan, and Mu Fengyang exchanged glances, then they gritted their teeth and said, "What's there to be afraid of? As long as you take the lead, we'll follow." Their eyes were full of excitement, their hearts racing. It was clear that following Mu Chun was going to be thrilling. While others tried to pick on the weaker teams, Mu Chun was doing the opposite, targeting the strongest teams in the top 16. There were risks involved, but after all, they were still young. The thrill of adventure was hard to resist. Mu Chun nodded with a smile upon seeing their reaction. "So, which team do we go after?" Su Huang and the others asked, looking at the teams on the academy token. Mu Chun's gaze also fell on the token, his cold eyes lingering on the name Ji Xian. "No way. We're going after a top-tier team this early." Su Huang and the others saw Mu Chun's gaze, and their faces paled. Surely not. He was already targeting the team ranked second? Mu Chun saw their pale faces and couldn't help but smile. He shook his head. Although he did want to face Ji Xian, it wasn't the right time. There was a gap in strength between Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy and Sacred Spirit Academy. Apart from him and Luo Li, Su Huang and the others were weaker, and as a team, they definitely couldn't match Ji Xian's. If they fought them head-on now, their chances of victory would be slim. Mu Chun couldn't help but smile wryly. In the past, when he was on the Spirit Road, he only had to consider his own strength. But now, as a representative of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, he had to think for the Academy and his teammates as well. It seemed that he would need to find a way to increase their team's strength. Mu Chun's finger gently tapped on Ji Xian's name, a cold glint flashing in his black eyes. "Not now, Ji Xian. But since we've come this far, we'll meet eventually," he sneered. Then his finger slid down the token and stopped. "Let's go for this team. Their position seems to be the closest to us." Su Huang and the others quickly looked at the token. 9th place, Desolate Spiritual Academy, Captain Ji Qingtian, 1,000 points. Desolate Spiritual Academy was also a top-tier academy with a strong foundation, nearly as strong as Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. It was said that the final spot in the 5 great academies had almost gone to them, but Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy had taken it instead. Still, this showed how powerful Desolate Spiritual Academy was. This team from Desolate Spiritual Academy probably wouldn't be weak either. However, compared to Sacred Spirit Academy, Desolate Spiritual Academy should be easier to deal with. Su Huang and the others exchanged a glance. "Let's go for Desolate Spiritual Academy." Seeing they had no objections, Mu Chun smiled and put the academy token away. "Since no one has any objections, let's get moving." Su Huang and the others nodded vigorously, feeling their blood heat up. Their eyes burned with intense battle intent. They were from Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. If they were afraid of a team like Desolate Spiritual Academy, it would be too embarrassing. Mu Chun smiled faintly and exchanged a glance with Luo Li. Without saying more, he moved, transforming into a streak of rainbow light as he rushed forward, heading in the direction indicated on the academy token. Behind him, Su Huang and the others, full of killing intent, closely followed. They had finally stepped into the battleground of the Spirit Academy Grand Competition. This continent of relics, though in a shattered state, was still vast beyond description. This became abundantly clear to Mu Chun and his group as they departed from the teleportation landing point and began heading toward the direction of the Barbarian Spirit Academy's team, as indicated on the Academy token. The experience was now real. After a full day of travel, the Barbarian Spirit Academy's team had yet to appear within their perception range. This left Chen speechless. Judging by this situation, the area of this relic continent was likely not smaller than the North Song continent. Moreover, it was said that this was only a fragment of the once complete relic continent. They couldn't even imagine how vast the original ancient relic continent must have been. Once one of the largest continents in the Great Thousand Worlds, its name was truly deserved. During their journey, Chen and his group encountered several teams. All the major Spirit Academy teams, having arrived on this continent, had now scattered completely, surging toward the broken relic continent like locusts, fighting fiercely to claim territory from one another. Intense battles erupted at every turn. In the course of their travel, they witnessed hundreds of skirmishes, each one monumental in scale. Along the way, they also encountered several teams trying to take advantage of them. However, Chen and his group didn't refuse any of them. Over the course of their journey, dozens of teams were destroyed by their hands, contributing more than 300 points to their score. At this point, their team's total score had reached nearly 800. However, this score was still far from enough to secure a spot in the top 16. Within just one day, the score of the top 16 had skyrocketed at an alarming rate. The team in first place was still led by Chen from the 10,000 Phoenix Spirit Academy, with a score of 3,300. The 16th place had also risen to 1,500. As Chen had said earlier, the rankings of the top 16 were constantly shifting. Some of the first teams to appear were quickly surpassed by stronger teams. Clearly, the truly powerful teams were starting to show their strength. The team from the Barbarian Spirit Academy, whom Chen and his group were focusing on, remained surprisingly resilient. Their rank had dropped from 9th to 11th, but had never fallen out of the top 16. This surprised Chen a bit. It seemed he had underestimated this team from the Barbarian Spirit Academy. Despite being pushed by stronger teams, they had managed to maintain this rank, clearly demonstrating real strength. This was fine, though. If they had suddenly dropped out, their day's pursuit would have been wasted. Whoosh! Several streaks of rainbow light streaked across the sky. Chen, we found the Barbarian Spirit Academy team. In the midst of the streaks, Su Huang's excited voice suddenly rang out. Upon hearing this, Chen took out the Academy token and saw that, after tracking the Barbarian Spirit Academy team, the general direction had shifted and turned into a detailed coordinate. Northwest, 300 miles. Finally found them. Chen smiled slightly, and then waved his hand, causing their speed to increase dramatically. Accelerate, stay alert. Whoosh, whoosh. 5 streaks of rainbow light shot through the sky, chasing the stars and the moon. After several minutes, their speed gradually slowed down. Spiritual energy surged around them, and their expressions turned cautious. Teams at the top of the rankings were like magnets, and they knew that the number of teams aiming for them was definitely not limited to their own. Naturally, they had to be extra careful. Otherwise, one careless move, and the hunter would become the hunted, a change that would be quite ridiculous. There are quite a few teams in this area. Luo Li approached Chen, a fragrant breeze following her. Her beautiful eyes swept across the vast expanse, and she whispered, "Something feels off." Chen frowned slightly and nodded gently. He too had sensed the subtle fluctuations of spiritual energy around them. There were quite a few of them, and it was clear that these people had the same objective as them. This puzzled Chen. Why was the team from the Desolate Spiritual Academy so sought after? Boom! As Chen pondered, a sudden, thunderous wave of spiritual energy erupted deep in the mountains, as though a battle was taking place. Chen and Luo Li exchanged a glance before swiftly rushing toward the source. Minutes later, they appeared in the heart of the mountain range. Looking up, they were momentarily startled to see several teams locked in combat in the sky. The astonishing wave of spiritual energy was emanating from the battle. It's the team from the Desolate Spiritual Academy. They're being surrounded? We're too late, Su Huang exclaimed in shock. Chen narrowed his eyes and looked up. He saw 5 teams in total, 4 of which seemed to be aligned, working together to encircle the central team, the team from the Desolate Spiritual Academy, the one Chen had been tracking. The Desolate Spiritual Academy team appeared to be in a dire state. The 4 teams surrounding them were immensely powerful, each of them matching the strength of the Desolate team. Now, with all 4 teams working together, They had the desolate team pinned down with no chance of retaliation. What surprised Chen and the others even more was the sight of over 100 teams hovering on the surrounding mountain peaks. They were all watching the battle in the sky, seemingly eyeing the desolate spiritual academy team. However, the 4 teams surrounding them were so strong that the other teams dared not interfere. This scene was indeed odd. Huh? One of the teams is from the Azure Sky Spirit Academy, Zhao Qingshan suddenly exclaimed. Chen and Luo Li were both taken aback. Looking over, they indeed saw that one of the 4 encircling teams was wearing the uniforms of the Azure Sky Spirit Academy, one of the 5 great academies. However, when Chen's gaze fell on a particular figure in the Azure Sky team, his expression suddenly changed. This Azure Sky Spirit Academy team was clearly the strongest of the 5, but they weren't actively engaging in the fight. Instead, they were adopting a surrounding posture, cutting off all escape routes for the desolate team. A few of them even wore smug expressions, like a cat toying with a mouse beneath its claws. No wonder the other teams just dared to watch from the sidelines without intervening. It's because the Azure Sky Spirit Academy is involved, Mu Fengyang muttered, frowning. These damn people, they beat us to it. We've been keeping an eye on the desolate spiritual academy team all day. Chen. Su Huang looked at him in confusion as he saw Chen's expression darken. There was a cold glint in his black eyes, and beside him, Luo Li's face was equally frosty. She slowly tightened her grip on her sword. What's wrong? Su Huang and the others asked, puzzled as to why Chen and Luo Li's expressions had changed so suddenly. We've run into an old acquaintance from the Spirit Road, Chen said with a faint smile, though there was a chilling undertone to it. Qiu Beihai didn't expect him to join the Azure Sky Spirit Academy. Luo Li's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. She spoke softly. He was a trusted aide of Ji Xian in the Spirit Road. After you were expelled, he led a team to hunt me down, but I crippled a few of his fingers. In the end, he reached the final destination of the Spirit Road, where they called him the Sea King, but I was busy dealing with Ji Xian, so I overlooked him. Still, this guy has some skill. Chen's eyes turned colder at her words. It's fine. Looks like we're destined to meet again. Su Huang and the others exchanged glances. They could tell that Chen and Luo Li seemed to have a history with that person from the Azure Sky Spirit Academy. They quietly asked, so, who are we targeting now? The Desolate Spiritual Academy or the Azure Sky Spirit Academy? Although the Azure Sky team seemed more troublesome than the Desolate team, Chen was the leader. As long as he gave the order, they would follow without question and engage the target. Su Huang, go find out what's going on here, Chen said softly. The situation was a bit strange. So many teams were converging on the Desolate Spiritual Academy, and even the Azure Sky Spirit Academy had a team involved. Su Huang nodded and quickly took off. 10 minutes later, he returned, his eyes filled with shock. It seems the Desolate Spiritual Academy got some information about an ancient relic. These people are all after that information. Chen was momentarily stunned when he heard this, his expression quickly turning strange. The Barbarian Spiritual Academy was indeed very lucky, wasn't it? They had only just arrived, and yet they were able to obtain such crucial information. No wonder so many wolves were drawn to them. What should we do? Zhao Qingshan and the others eagerly asked. Whether it was the Barbarian Spiritual Academy's generous points or the intelligence they held, both had piqued their interest. Chen squinted his eyes, gazing at the figures in the distance. He waved his hand and coldly said, let's go. His figure moved, charging directly toward the battlefield in the sky. Luo Li, Su Huang, and the others quickly followed. Whoosh! Chen made no attempt to conceal his presence and directly rushed toward the battle circle. Their sudden appearance immediately drew the attention of many, causing exclamations to ring out. It's the team from Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy? Damn, are they here for the same intelligence? This makes it even harder to get our hands on it. In the sky, the previously intense battle slowed because of Chen's arrival. The team from Azure Sky Spirit Academy wore solemn expressions. Captain, that's the team from Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. What should we do? Should we take care of them? Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy has been falling behind in recent years. If they dare to interfere, we should just eliminate them. The members of Azure Sky Spirit Academy looked toward a young man in their group, speaking all at once. The young man's eyes were cold, and he frowned as he stared at the approaching team. His sharp gaze swept over them, but the next moment, his expression changed abruptly. A look of shock crossed his face as he exclaimed, "Mu Chen? Luoli." As Mu Chen and the others approached the battlefield, they gradually slowed down and stopped. He looked at the young man who had changed drastically in expression because of their appearance, and a cold smile appeared on his face. "Qiu Beihai, we meet again. What a coincidence." Qiu Beihai, whose eyes were filled with coldness, fixed his gaze on Mu Chen and Luoli. After a long pause, he darkly said, "Mu Chen, I never thought that after being kicked out of the Spirit Road, you would still manage to join one of the 5 great academies. Impressive. But..." A cold smile suddenly appeared at the corner of Qiu Beihai's mouth. He looked at Mu Chen with interest and said, "It seems like you've fallen behind. Late heaven-reaching stage, huh? Haha. Don't you fear that your infamous title as the Spirit Road Blood Calamity Instigator will bring you into massive trouble? Ji Xian is now far ahead of you. If you encounter him again..." The moment of shock that had crossed Qiu Beihai's mind earlier gradually dissipated as he saw Mu Chen's current strength. Instead, a sense of satisfaction took its place. Late heaven-reaching stage? Haha, the blood calamity instigator who had once made him feel extreme danger on the Spirit Road was now reduced to this. Luo Li's beautiful eyes turned cold as she said, "Qiu Beihai, it looks like you don't care much for those remaining fingers of yours." Qiu Beihai's expression changed, and he gritted his teeth, staring fiercely at Luo Li. His hands clenched tightly, his palms each missing a finger, something that happened when he had tried to surround Luo Li on the Spirit Road, only to be counter-killed by her. It had always been a pain in his heart, but he still feared Luo Li somewhat. In his perception, she had obviously overcome the physical body tribulation, and her strength was no weaker than his. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Qiu Beihai sneered and said, "I heard that Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy only has 2 teams this time? Heh. Looks like after this Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, the title of the 5 great academies will be taken from you. I can't be bothered with you right now. Get your people and leave. Mu Chen, if I were you, I'd hide somewhere smartly before you run into Ji Xian. You'll be crushed completely. With your infamous title as the Spirit Road Blood Calamity Instigator, you'll only lose face." "What did you say?" Su Huang and the others immediately changed their expressions and shouted in anger. "Can't you understand what I'm saying?" Qiu Beihai sneered. He then waved his hand, and 4 of his teammates gathered behind him. One of the young men stepped forward and stood beside him, giving Mu Chen's group a mocking glance. A team with only a physical body tribulation level strength? Heh, Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy is indeed finished. The young man, slightly older than Qiu Beihai, crossed his arms and sneered. A tremendous spiritual energy fluctuation radiated from his body. The team in front of them had 2 members who had reached the physical body tribulation, and the other 3 were all in the late heaven-reaching stage. On the surface, their lineup appeared to be slightly stronger than Mu Chen's team. What was most important, however, was that they had 3 allied teams. Though these teams were not as strong as theirs, each of them had 1 member who had surpassed the physical body tribulation. While some personnel might need to be diverted to deal with the Barbarian Spiritual Academy's team, the remaining members were more than enough to handle the team from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy with ease. They did not believe that the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy team would dare to entertain any thoughts of rebellion under such overwhelming pressure. Meanwhile, the 3 teams surrounding the Barbarian Spiritual Academy had noticed the standoff, and immediately one team broke off to join the confrontation. The leader of this team wore a mischievous grin as he looked over at Mu Chen's team. His eyes couldn't help but repeatedly roam over Luo Li's delicate form. Whistling, he said, "I never imagined that the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy has such a beautiful girl. We sure don't have anyone of this quality in the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy. Hee, Brother Beihai, need any help?" He looked over at Qiu Beihai with a grin, his spiritual energy rippling through his body, revealing that he too was a master who had surpassed the physical body tribulation. 2 teams now stood in front of Mu Chen's group like fierce tigers, watching them closely. Su Huang and the others changed their expressions slightly upon seeing this. While they were not afraid of the Azure Sky Spiritual Academy's team in a one-on-one fight, the appearance of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy's team changed the situation. Although the opponent only had one expert who had surpassed the physical body tribulation, it was enough to shift the balance. A small trouble, Qiu Beihai said with a smile, then looked at Mu Chun with a somewhat smug gaze. The opponent who had once caused him great pressure now lay completely suppressed before him. It was truly laughable to think about. Mu Chun, I advise you to leave now. I'm not in the mood to deal with you today, so don't go looking for trouble. Qiu Beihai waved his hand dismissively. Mu Chun glanced at Qiu Beihai, who appeared to have everything under control, and couldn't help but smile. He then turned his head to look at Luo Li and asked, how should we divide this up? Leave the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy's team to me. Luo Li replied with a gentle smile. Entire team? Mu Chun raised an eyebrow. Don't trust me. Luo Li glanced at Mu Chun with her beautiful eyes, raising the Luo God's sword in her hand, smiling as she said, if it comes to a fight, you might not be able to beat me. Mu Chun smiled and nodded. Then I'll take care of the two physical body tribulation guys from the Azure Sky Spiritual Academy. The other three, you and Su Huang will handle. Is that all right? After all, they were a team. They couldn't just leave Su Huang and the others watching on the sidelines every time. No problem. Su Huang and the others agreed without hesitation. The Azure Sky Spiritual Academy's team, aside from Qiu Beihai and one other physical body tribulation expert, had only late heaven-reaching stage members, whose strength was comparable to theirs. Naturally, they were not afraid. Mu Chun, don't think you can ignore me. Seeing that Mu Chun completely ignored him and divided up the teams in just a few words, Qiu Beihai's face turned a shade of iron, and he spoke coldly. Hee, what an arrogant little girl. You think you can take on our whole team by yourself? The leader of the Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy's team looked at Luo Li with a smirk. Although she had surpassed the physical body tribulation, thinking she could take on their entire team was a little too far-fetched. Above them, many other teams were watching the situation unfold, and when they saw the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy team attempting to take on two, they were all surprised. Only one member of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy team had surpassed the physical body tribulation, yet with such a lineup, they dared to challenge the Azure Sky and Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy? In the distance, the two teams surrounding the Barbarian Spiritual Academy also took note of what was happening. They slowed their attack, realizing that the Barbarian Spiritual Academy's team, which had managed to break into the top 16 and hold on for a day, was indeed quite formidable. Earlier, the three teams had surrounded them, with the Azure Sky Spiritual Academy providing backup, and that was the only way they managed to suppress the Barbarian Spiritual Academy. But now, with the Azure Sky and Great Cauldron Spiritual Academy pulling back, their two teams could barely hold the Barbarian Spiritual Academy at bay, let alone pose the same kind of threat they had before. The Barbarian Spiritual Academy team also noticed this shift and let out a quiet sigh of relief. If things had continued the way they were, they might not have been able to last much longer. The leader of the Barbarian Spiritual Academy team, a burly youth, watched the standoff between the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy and the Azure Sky and Great Cauldron Spiritual Academies in the distance. His eyes flickered slightly. Their current situation was not looking good. If the Azure Sky and Great Cauldron Spiritual Academies were able to focus their attention on them again, they would be in serious trouble. But at the moment, they had no other options. Mu Chun looked at Qiu Beihai, whose face had turned a bit ashen, and shook his head with a smile. He slowly stepped forward and raised his palm, the smile on his lips gradually turning cold and stern. Qiu Beihai, I never even glanced at you on the spirit road, and here, it's the same. In my eyes, you don't even have the qualifications to dance in front of me. Veins bulged on Qiu Beihai's face as his eyes twisted with growing ferocity. He then let out a sinister laugh and said, Fine, then let me see who doesn't have the qualifications to dance today. Boom. Qiu Beihai's clothes fluttered as a tremendous surge of spiritual energy erupted from him. In the next instant, his eyes gleamed with malice as he shouted, Destroy them! Bang! The moment his command rang out, he shot forward like a beast, gripping his hand tightly as a crimson longsword materialized. A sharp sword aura surged upwards toward the sky. Behind him, another powerful cultivator from Xun'er Spirit Academy, also at the physical body tribulation stage, shot out with an icy expression, flanking him from both sides like hawks, heading straight for Mu Chen. "Come, little girl. Let me see how you're going to take down our whole team." The captain of the Great Cauldron Spirit Academy team locked eyes with Luo Li and sneered coldly. Swish. In response, a sword aura as sharp as the Milky Way cut through the air, tearing the sky apart. The chilling force made his face instantly change. He gripped his palm, and a black iron shield with a glowing spiritual aura appeared before him. Clang! The sword aura struck the iron shield, creating a flash of light and leaving a deep gouge on the surface. Seeing the deep scar on the iron shield, the captain's eyes twitched. But before he could recover, a graceful figure appeared like a ghost in front of him. The sword shadow swept through and landed heavily on the shield. Uft! The spiritual artifact, which had incredible defense, seemed as fragile as tofu under the sword's strike. The sword shadow pierced through it, and the tip of the sword stopped just a mere inch from the captain's forehead. A trickle of blood oozed from the center of his brow. His face shifted dramatically, terror flashing in his eyes as he roared, "Attack!" Behind him, the Great Cauldron Spirit Academy's team surged forward with a terrifying offensive, descending upon the graceful figure. In the sky above, an even more intense battle exploded in an instant. Boom! The immense spiritual energy surged like a tidal wave from the heavens, darkening the skies. Qiu Beihai, wielding a crimson longsword that gleamed with a cold, eerie light, clearly held a spiritual weapon of considerable rank. Its sharpness seemed capable of cutting through space. His cold, murderous gaze locked onto Mu Chen, and in a flash, he appeared right in front of him, thrusting the sword violently. Swish! Endless sword chi surged forth as the longsword transformed into countless sword shadows, each like a rainbow, covering all of Mu Chen's vital points, surrounding him completely. The sword shadows reflected in Mu Chen's pupils, and a fierce glint instantly appeared in his dark eyes. He then clenched his fist tightly, and a beam of black light appeared from his palm, forming a massive black spear. The spear's shape was menacing, covered in black dragon scales. The tip of the spear resembled a dragon's mouth, with sharp, vicious dragon fangs forming the spear's point, exuding an aura of sharpness and savagery. As soon as the black spear materialized, a killing intent spread out, causing the space around it to tremble. This black spear was none other than the dragon-devouring demonic spear, a spoils of war Mu Chen had obtained after slaying Xun'er. The spear was a true top-tier spiritual weapon, its power formidable. On that day, Xun'er had used this spear to block Mu Chen's great Xun'er demon pillar. Although Mu Chen had not dared to unlock the seal on the great Xun'er demon pillar, it was enough to reveal the terrifying might of the dragon-devouring demonic spear. Roar! The moment the dragon-devouring demonic spear appeared in Mu Chen's hand, the spear trembled, as if a dragon filled with malevolent energy was roaring. Mu Chen thrust it forward with a violent motion. A black light surged from the spear tip like a flood, sweeping away the sword shadows that had engulfed him. Swish! The spear's shadow spread like a miasma of killing intent, a flash of cold light cutting through the sword shadows, even tearing through space as it shot toward Qiu Beihai's throat. The cold light drew near, and Qiu Beihai's face flickered in surprise. Clearly, he had sensed the terrifying lethality of Mu Chen's dragon-devouring demonic spear. His body froze momentarily, and he thrust his crimson longsword forward. Clang! The clash of the spear and sword sent sparks flying, and a fierce gust of wind spread out. The space around the two of them seemed to ripple, as violent spiritual energy turned into a hurricane, sweeping out from the point of impact between the spear and sword. Qiu Beihai's hand holding the sword trembled. His fierce face grew significantly more serious. After truly engaging in battle, he was finally able to feel the oppressive force emanating from Mu Chen's body. This kind of strength was absolutely beyond what someone at the late heaven-reaching stage could possess. Bastard! Qiu Beihai gritted his teeth and shouted, "Shinjun, attack! Die!" As Qiu Beihai's voice fell, a figure suddenly appeared behind Mu Chen. It was another member of the Azure Sky Spirit Academy's team, someone who had reached the body tribulation stage. His palms flickered like lightning, heavy as 1,000 pounds, and without hesitation, he struck at the vital spot on Mu Chen's back. Boom! The wind from his palm howled, and the air itself seemed to shatter. Xun'er, clearly no pushover, launched a vicious attack the moment he moved, intending to team up with Qiu Beihai to quickly defeat Mu Chen. The thunderous wind from the palm swept toward Mu Chen, but his gaze turned cold. With a sudden motion, he punched out, and black lightning arced over his arm. Between his fingers, it was as if black, thunderous liquid flowed. The power in that punch was enough to shatter the heavens and crack the earth. Boom! Mu Chen's punch collided with Xun'er's palm wind in a fierce clash. The moment of impact was like a mountain torrent exploding, visible shockwaves rippling outward. Amid the thunder, Xun'er's expression changed drastically. The terrifying power coming from Mu Chen's punch immediately overwhelmed him. What was even more terrifying was the extreme strength of Mu Chen's body. Even after overcoming the body tribulation, his own body was not a match for Mu Chen's. How is his body so strong? A look of shock crossed Xun'er's face, and he immediately attempted to retreat. Get lost. However, just as his figure moved, Mu Chen gave a cold smile and slammed out with his fist. Boom! A sharp pain surged through Xun'er's arm, and a terrifying force poured in. His body was blasted back several hundred yards. His palm was bruised and swollen, the pain spreading as though his arm had been rendered useless. Wow! This scene immediately caused an uproar in the sky. The teams watching the battle were all astonished. Who could have imagined that Mu Chen, who appeared to only be at the late heaven-reaching stage, could force Xun'er back with just one punch while facing two opponents? Such strength. Not even those who had passed the body tribulation would be able to achieve it. This Mu Chen from Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy is indeed extraordinary. No wonder he dares to challenge the Azure Sky Spirit Academy's team. This is going to be interesting, many teams thought. Their interest peaked. They had initially thought that Northern Heaven's team was weaker than those from the other 5 great academies, but they didn't expect this seemingly average late heaven-reaching stage youth to possess such terrifying combat ability. Heaven Sea Sword Art, Burial Sky Sword. Qiu Beihai's expression also changed upon seeing this, and he immediately roared, swinging his sword to deflect Mu Chen's dragon-devouring demonic spear. The sword hummed and vibrated as if drawing, and a blood-red sword mark appeared in the air. Within that sword mark, a sword howl rang out, transforming into a massive blood-red sword that slashed down at Mu Chen. This slash carried immense power. Though it hadn't yet reached the ground, the mountain below was already cleaved in two by the sword energy that penetrated downward. Mu Chen's eyes flashed slightly. His figure moved, and a dragon-like shadow appeared beneath his feet. His figure flickered and vanished like a ghost, and the sword light swept down, missing entirely. Xun'er, be careful. After the sword missed, Qiu Beihai's face suddenly changed, and he shouted in alarm. At that very moment, Xun'er saw Mu Chen's figure materialize like a ghost above him. The latter's handsome face broke into a faint smile as he said, "I'll deal with you first." Boom. Boundless spiritual energy surged out of Mu Chen's body, sweeping over everything. His spiritual energy was different from before. It was no longer a dark hue, but a fusion of black and white, resembling the yin-yang fusion. Spiritual energy rippled, immediately transforming behind Mu Chen into a starry sky. Within the sky, massive beastly shadows materialized, eventually merging into rainbow light that shot out, turning into an enormous divine seal above Xun'er's head. 4 deities constellation cannon, 4 gods sealing heaven seal. Mu Chen's gaze was cold as he formed a seal with his palm and suddenly pressed it down. Boom. The 4 beastly shadows howled toward the sky, and the divine seal erupted in brilliant divine light, causing the spiritual energy in the surrounding heavens and earth to flee from the area. Xun'er looked up at the divine seal descending from the sky, his expression changing drastically. Clearly, he recognized the terrifying power behind Mu Chen's attack. Without hesitation, he roared and clapped his palms together, unleashing his spiritual power without reserve. Heavenly Light Wheel Seal. A vast wave of spiritual energy surged, transforming into a colossal light ring hundreds of feet in diameter above Xun'er. Within the halo, a massive light seal condensed, radiating powerful fluctuations. The ring then howled forward, clashing head-on with the descending divine seal. Bang! The two forces collided, and the shockwave spread. But soon, Xun'er's expression changed dramatically, for he saw the light ring being overwhelmed at an astonishing speed upon contact with the divine seal. The divine seal seemed to possess some kind of sealing power, and as soon as it made contact, Xun'er's spiritual energy was suppressed and sealed. Chen smiled indifferently. When he was at the early heaven-reaching stage, the For God's sealing heaven seal had forced Demon King Tian to use his ultimate technique. Now, having advanced to the late heaven-reaching stage, with Xun'er clearly weaker than Demon King Tian, it was a foolish dream for him to try to resist such an attack. Be sealed. Chen's palm faced downward, and he struck with great force. Boom! The divine seal instantly covered Xun'er, and the light ring shattered completely. Xun'er's face turned pale as his body rapidly retreated in an attempt to dodge. However, it was already too late. The divine seal roared downward, immediately suppressing him. Uft! Blood sprayed from Xun'er's mouth as the vast fluctuations of his spiritual energy rapidly weakened. Glowing runes emerged on the surface of his body, acting like a seal that suppressed his spiritual energy completely. As his spiritual energy faded, Xun'er's body plummeted from the sky, crashing violently onto a mountain peak. The entire mountain trembled, cracks spreading as a giant pit formed. Xun'er, covered in blood, lay there struggling, clearly grievously injured. Hiss! The teams in the sky collectively gasped in shock, staring at Chen with astonishment. Who would have thought that the latter's methods were so ruthless? After just one exchange, he had unleashed such a powerful technique, severely wounding a master who had passed the physical body tribulation. Chen, having sealed Xun'er, turned calmly, his black eyes icy as they locked onto Qiu Beihai, whose expression was fluctuating with fear. Chen's voice was soft but cold as he said, "I heard that after I left the spirit road, you even hunted down Luoli?" Chen smiled faintly, but the smile was as cold as a blade, causing Qiu Beihai's scalp to tingle.